Yeah, so without much further ado, please let me welcome our guest speaker tonight. I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's just welcome her. She's speaking on a subject of bridging the gap between the pursuer and avoidant, people in marriage. Marriage is a very important institution, and we just want to hear from her and her expertise. So without much further ado, please let's welcome Pendo. Pendo, do introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Fiona, who connected us. And thank you, Israel, who's been helping me to set up the meeting today. My name is Pendo Galukande, and before I get into our presentation, I want to tell you a little story. So 1981, 82, I don't remember exactly the year, we in Uganda had not received video systems by the VHS. I don't know if any of you remembers video home systems. And they brought this thing in a box. We plugged it into the TV, and they told us you can watch movies on demand. You don't have to wait for TV as we used to in the past, where you'd wait for 4 o'clock, then the TV would come on, and then by I think 9 it was done. So I think my adoptive dad bought some videos, maybe like 3. But none of us knew how to operate this thing. We knew how to plug in and to press start, and we knew how to press off. We knew how to power it and power it up, power it off. But in between, we didn't know how it worked. And so we'd just press different buttons until the picture comes on and the sound comes on. Sometimes the picture would come on without the sound. Sometimes the sound would come on without the picture. But sometimes both came on. And then we would sit around the living room and watch, whether it was Dr. Zhivago or one of those old movies, and have a delightful, wonderful time. And then eventually we'd switch it off. And the next day, again, we didn't know what it is we had done right. We just go poking until the thing comes on. And I feel like in many ways, that is what is happening in marriage today. We all know about the falling in love, and you walk down the aisle and you tie the knot and you know how to begin. And for sure, many of us have known how to end it. But in between, we press buttons here and there, and sometimes it goes sound without picture, and sometimes picture without sound. And we don't really know what is going on. So I feel that it's my calling and my role to give people in relationships, in deep romantic relationships, a little bit more insight about what is going on. What is going on? Can we get both picture and sound at the same time? Can we get it? Can we optimize? Can we optimize for more enjoyment, for more delight, for more wholesomeness, for more, more satisfaction? Can we optimize? That is what I'm hoping that you go away with, some more clarity on on what is going on, and therefore the beginnings of how to optimize. So this is going to be an interactive presentation. I'm going to ask you to respond to some questions or to put things in the chat. So please be ready. And even as I present, I'll explain why that is important. So our topic tonight is bridging the gap, healing the pursuer-avoidant dynamics in marriage. Now, I've been told that in the group that Mary and Fiona that's hosting us today, First Ladies, that you already have had a talk on attachment and attachment styles. And so I'm not going to get into all the details of the attachment styles. We're going to focus mostly on pursuer and avoidant, and many dynamics, the tendency to go in, like really heavily make advances towards, and the tendency to withdraw from closeness in marriage. So there we go. So my name is Pendo Galukande, and I'm a couple, marriage, and family therapist. My permanent residence is in Uganda, and right now I'm in East Lansing, Michigan, pursuing my PhD in the same marriage and family therapy at Michigan State University. I'm married to the love of my life, Moses Galukande, who's a professor of surgical oncology at Makerere University. And we have a son, an adult son now, who actually lives in the UK. So many of you might bump into him, or maybe when I come to the UK, would bump into you all. So I'm here today because I have an urgent message for the church and for church families. I really believe that the family is the basing building block of the kingdom of God. This is the place where God works his magic. This is the place of greatest influence on any human being. It's a place where God forms our character. When he wants excellence in someone, this is where it's most likely to happen. I'm not saying there aren't other influencers and in our influences in our lives, but family is the biggest place where that happens. If he wants to comfort your soul, family is the place where God sows those seeds of enduring comfort. Nothing can shape us the way family does, and nothing can also hurt us the way that family does. And within families, the couple is the most influential subsystem. So I focus on couple relationships because the couple many times is the one that's going to impact the children. So how well the couple bonds is going to really determine the life, not of just the two partners, but also the children, and from there on, what that family goes to do in the world. I would like to be transparent and say, I didn't come to this path through the easiest of circumstances. In fact, I came to this journey through my own pain in my own marriage. And if you like, I would say I was baptized by fire. My husband and I came to this calling more than 27 years ago. During our honeymoon stage, before we were married, just so in love, the people that were most in love, I think, in the world, and said, we want to show other people how it's done. And so we're going to be counseling couples. And we started off doing that, and along the way came upon our own challenges, came to a really rocky part of our marriage, and we didn't know even if we would survive. And through that time, I started to consider going to study marriage and family therapy, and came upon this term, negative preparation. I really was a little bit reluctant. And in my book, I've written, I'll read for you just a tiny excerpt. I found this part about negative preparation. I had never heard of the term before. What on earth was negative preparation? Within a few paragraphs, I learned that it's the difficulties that in our lives that become the main propellants toward a certain direction. The hardships that lead us to our calling. Whereas I'd always had an interest in marriage and marital counseling, I had never planned to take a deep dive of studying couple and marriage and family therapy. It became the pain became the main reason that I would pay a high price. So my previous interest was insufficient to get me concrete training. So if this was how God was going to motivate me, I was game. I felt like this message on negative preparation was from God directly to me. So God brought me to this through a huge amount of pain, and I'm here to. Can you hear me? Today I'm going to give an overview of attachment, and then we'll go into some basic definitions. Because this is not an academic space, I'm going to be very light on the definitions, but I'm going to go more into you experiencing this thing we call attachment. Attachment is one of the main theories that I feel has explained what is going on in relationships, in like marriage. And then we'll spend a good part of our time talking about the healing, how healing comes to this dynamic in marriage. So would also like to do a little poll, and I'm going to ask you again to please go down to the polls. We're going to launch our first poll, And it's just to help me understand who is attending today. Is it a male person at the other end? Is it a female, or is it a couple? Is it both? So just please answer this question, because depending on who I'm speaking to, I like to tailor my examples to the group. If I know it's mostly males, the examples will be like that. If I know it's mostly females, we'll spend more time speaking to females. Right, I'm going to share the results with all of you so you can see. So we have about 28 females, 5 males, 4 couples, and a whole lot more people who haven't answered, because there are 50 people on the call, but only 37 have answered. But that's representative. At least we know that it's mostly females. And this tends to be actually my audience tends to be like that, a lot female. And yeah, it's really important for us to understand. It's important for me, at least, to understand who I'm dealing with and who, to tailor the message. So thank you so much for responding to that. So before I get into what is attachment, I want you to feel attachment. I want you to just experience it in your body. So I'm going to show us a couple of videos. The first video is video of a little monkey. So when attachment was understood, we couldn't exactly go out and study attachment in children, because it's possible to create undue stress to human beings, and there's many ethical problems with that research. So a lot of work on attachment has been done in animals, and especially in monkeys. And I don't know how people feel about that, but I thought that it was useful too. Oh, some people answered this question on the side, saying there were males, there were couples, 3 or more sons on the call. Okay, so we may have some more males on the call than I realized. I'm going to share with you this little video about attachment. Whoops. Sorry about that. Going to share with you a little video about Harlow's monkeys. This was a scientist in olden day UK, and he was, one of the foremost people studying attachment, and discovered some very interesting things about attachment. And I think that I've never shared this clip before in any of my talks, and I think it will bring a new light when you just watch this video. So just hang on for Harlow's monkeys.
Now here are 106's 2 mothers. As you can see, it was weaned on a wire mother. Here's baby 106. Watch. He's going to the wire mother. He's got to eat to live. Oh, he's going back. He's back on the cloth mother, and he'll stay on the cloth mother. Actually, this baby spends from 17 to 18 hours a day on the cloth mother and less than 1 hour a day on the wire mother. We had predicted that the variable of contact comfort would be a variable of measurable importance, but we were unprepared to find that it completely overwhelmed and overshadowed all other variables, including those of nursing.
Frankly, Doctor, if it comes to a choice between wire and cloth, it's reasonable to expect that any child will go to the cloth. It's a matter of creature comfort, like a baby with its blanket. But is this really love?
Well, what do you mean by saying that a baby loves its mother? Certainly one thing we mean is that it gets a great feeling of security in the presence of the mother. Now, Mr. Collingwood, wouldn't you say that if you frightened a baby, that it went running to its mother, was comforted, and then all the fear disappeared and was replaced by a complete sense of security, that that baby loved its mother?
Because what is love? What do you call love? If a child was frightened and they went to their mother and got this sense of comfort, wouldn't that? And one would think, when I initially saw that there was a bottle on the wire mother, I really thought that the child was going to spend more time on that wire mother. But the child was spending 70 or more % of their time on the cloth mother than on the wire mother, meaning that this little monkey needed something more than feeding. And this is when I say I'm going to talk about attachment, I want you to start to get that sense of that needing of comfort that the cloth mother was offering. So I'm going to go back to our slide presentation. So this research was then done with children, and hopefully you're going to watch a second video. And again, I want you to just, put yourselves in that picture, identify with these children. Let me just give you a little heads up. A child and mother are put together in the room, and then they are separated. And then when they reconnect, we are seeing how do these children respond to the mother? How do they reunite? What is the behavior? Because by this time we already have the idea they're mothers for comfort. But do we all receive comfort in the same way? Do all children receive comfort in the same way? By this time, when these research is being done with children, we have already understood that there are different types of responding to mother. So watch with me and let's see the different types of
This
response.
experiment, which I watched through a two-way mirror, is designed to gauge how secure is the crucial relationship between mother and child.
Okay, great.
Okay, this bunny is going to go here, and that bunny will be on top.
The value of the test has been established in studies that would watch a child, 1-year-old, and then follow it up and interview them about their relationships to their parents when they were 21 years old. So we're quite confident in the long-term significance of this relationship.
Peter, that's Peter.
After several minutes' play, the mother is signaled to leave the room.
Sweetie, I'll be back in 1 minute. I'll get you back in 1 minute.
It's upsetting for you. Shame, I feel. But she'll survive. The key moment in the experiment is the child's reaction to her mother's return.
Honey, hi. Hi, honey. It's okay.
The important clue is whether the baby's able to become calmed down by the contact with the mother, get back to play. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes. But you see, when the mother was out, she was only interested in the mother, no interest in the toys. Now she has a contact with the mother. She's beginning to show a little interest in the environment. And shortly, she'll be right back with the toys where we started.
So you would call this a secure one?
Yes, yes.
She's certainly much happier.
Goes to the door following her. Now, we sent the mother right back in. The point here is not to distress the baby. We're just trying to challenge it. The baby puts her hands to her face, a sad expression, puts her face down. When she picks her up, she keeps her head down, her arms out, and then she sits in the chair holding the baby. The baby's still sullen. He's low-keyed.
So you would call this insecure
Yes,
attachment?
insecure. He's avoidant. He's not engaging her, and it's not the reunion's not effective. And it's important to remember here that the thing that upset him was her absence. Her return should be the solution to his problem. Now this is another pattern that we see in babies who are not good at using their mother as a secure base at home. This baby is also insecure. But you'll see, we get a look at his play before the separation. The mother's left, and when she returns, she picks him up. He can't calm down. He's still upset. She offers a toy to amuse him or to comfort him or to distract him, and he slaps it away. She offers another. He slaps it away. He's angry. We call these babies resistant or ambivalent because they both want her back and yet can't use the context. The difficulty is that in the past, when he sought comfort, she's been inconsistent as to whether she's available and responsive or not.
Okay. So from that little video, we understand that there are children who, when they reunite with their moms, they're able to be comforted and to go back to functioning, normal function. And then there are those children who they will perhaps go back to the mom, but not be comforted. They're not able to draw out the comfort that is needed. And then there are those children who they go back to the mother, but they don't engage anymore. They remain slightly aloof. And this, my friends, is how our understanding of attachment theory was developed. So he says attachment is a deep and enduring emotional bond that connects one person to another across time and space. And I'm sure I don't need to prove to anybody that you can be very connected to somebody who's not even in the same house as you. Some of us are very attached to maybe a deceased parent, and we still feel that strong bond with them. Or a partner who's, like for me, my husband is in Uganda, I'm all the way in the States, and I'm closer to him than people who I meet on a day-to-day basis. So there's this unique relationship. So attachment is about a unique emotional bond that connects two people. And with the study of attachment, what we've understood is that this bond can be even more important than food and water in survival. Children who are brought up in orphanages, again, a lot of this research was done in London, and not given connection with their mother figures or not given any love, they failed to thrive and actually got illnesses, and many of them died. Not because they didn't have food, not because they didn't have shelter, not because they didn't have food or medicines, but because they were not receiving this love and care. This emotional bond had been removed from. So the attachment theory, the understanding of this link that we have to other humans, was created by John Bowlby. He's the one who put it into like a concise concept and basically said children come into the world pre-programmed to bond. Pre-programmed to seek for comfort, care, and pleasure. This bond has a use, and that they will seek proximity. They'll seek to be close to, nearby, in the same geographical location as the person that they are close to, and that they'll use that person as a base when exploring. For example, when you saw Harlow's monkeys, the monkey would go to the cloth mother as his base, but go out, get milk, go back to the mother. Go out, go back to the mother. And if you notice, for those of you with small children, as they grow, they will start to maybe crawl or walk and be able to leave, but each time they come back, and that is secure base. And then safe haven is if they happen to meet something frightening on the other side, they rush back to the mother. And this time, the mother isn't just the base, the mother is the place for comfort, for security. And so we say that this bond, the way we know that this is an attachment bond is because the person returns when they are frightened and when they need comfort. Also, another key thing that helps us to understand which one is an attachment bond and which one isn't is that there's usually distress when the two are separated. There's that longing, that feeling of wanting to connect with that person. But I've talked a lot about babies, and you may be wondering why on earth we've come to talk about marriage, and she has spent more than half of the time talking about monkeys and talking about babies. What has this got to do with anything? So in the early 1980s, this Dr. Sue Johnson, who you see here, she discovered that this same concept that we saw in babies and their mothers particularly is actually the same thing that is playing out in the adult relationship. And several other experiments were done to just start to understand, to really look at the behavior and see, do we still see these patterns playing out? And I'll be able to show you a small video as well that shows that the same thing is playing out even in adult relationships. So just stand by. Okay, the first part of this video, we're just going to show something else called still face. So one of the reasons why I was asking you to please put on your cameras is because as human beings, this attachment thing is also very dependent on us looking at each other's faces. And when the face stops being responsive, we experience that as separation or a danger signal. We are coded to read that as a danger signal. So me talking to the computer on my own is very, there's a degree of a lack of comfort for me. And seeing a face on the other side, hearing either Mary or Fiona's voice, all those are elements of attachment, elements of comfort. So I'm going to show you the still face experiment, which was just to show a little bit again how a child reacts when they're getting responsiveness, and also what happens when they do not get responsiveness.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her. This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, come on, why aren't we doing this? Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Now let's look at the exact same drama in an adult couple at a moment when emotional connection is lost. We're going to be filming the session today so that you can watch it later, yeah? Okay, I'll be back in just a second.
I think this is going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I also think that we're going to have fun at my sister's birthday on Saturday. I love when you and I do things together as a couple.
Yeah, look, I think we already talked about this, so I don't want to go. It's just not my thing, so I'm just going to stay home and watch TV.
But you said you would. And this matters to me. It's important that we do things with my family. That we all be together. What is happening here? Are you going to talk to me? Now you're putting up your wall, like you always do? Are you listening to me?
Look, I just don't see how your family reunion is my issue, okay? Look, can we talk about it later? We'll talk about it later.
It seems like my feelings and what's important to me is never an issue with you. This matters to me, Ted. And you said you would come.
No, we can talk about it later. You don't have to get so upset.
This is where I feel like we're not even a couple. Like you don't care about my feelings. And we never talk about these things.
Well, now you're just being critical. And that's not talking, you know? After this, I'm just gonna go back to work.
I feel like I'm all alone here. Where are you anyway?
Why do you have to make such... It's like a total emotional thing. It's not a big deal, okay?
Do I matter to you at all? You're mean.
No.
Mean and selfish. You don't care about anybody but yourself.
Why'd you marry me then?
Good question. Why did I? You don't care if I hurt. You're just not there for me.
Okay. I hope you all managed to watch that. Yeah, someone's asking for my contact. And we will put it in the chat, but it's pendogalukande, one word, @gmail.com. I understand some people have to log off. It's pendogalukande, one word, @gmail.com. So to understand marriage and marriage relationships, this has been found that this is the most common dynamic, that there's always a pursuer, someone who in relationships is actively seeking closeness and intimacy, and also that there is the avoidant. This person is seeking independence, autonomy, self-reliance, and often they may have difficulty trusting others and just have a discomfort with emotional intimacy. And that pursuers tend to seek out and be attracted to avoidance, and avoidants tend to seek out pursuers. Once in a while, you get a pursue in therapy, or an avoid, but most times, more than 80% of the time, we find that the most common dynamic is someone is a pursuer in the relationship, constantly seeking closeness, and another is an avoidant. They are just uncomfortable with intimacy. Now, in your minds, I'm sure you can already tell who is, who is who, which is which. How are you in this closest of relationships, these deep relationships? And I know that you may start to think about friendships and office relationships. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about this, your number one primary relationship. Do you see yourself more as a pursuer, or do you see yourself more of an avoidant? Now, while you're bearing that in mind, I would like us to also kind of come to clarity about which stage of marriage. These cycles are there throughout the stages of marriage. So they say that marriage or romantic relationships go through 4 stages. Stage 1 is called the dream, and this is Karo and Muruthi Wanjau who came up with these words. They say dream is the honeymoon stage. The person is beautiful. They seem like they're an angel that just dropped from heaven. You're just so excited to be with one another. There's very little conflict. If somebody says, just take out the trash, you're happy to take it, stay with the kids, you're happy to stay, whatever they want, your wish is my command, is how dream is. Drama is a stage which is characterized more by conflict and power struggles. This is where life is not good. You may get to a place where you think, no, I don't think we can stay together anymore. This is not satisfactory. It's not working. Discovery is a stage that comes many times after drama, when the extreme fighting has ended, and there's a little bit more peace, but many times feels like you're just brothers and sisters in this relationship. The romance has died down, and yeah, there's a bit of boredom. And a lot of couples will divorce in drama, but some divorce in discovery, where they find that, hey, this thing is just not meeting my needs anymore. Now, apparently, according to Karo and Muruthi Wanjau, they say that very few couples actually make it to depth. Depth is like a second honeymoon phase, a place where you start to see your spouse or your partner with this newfound eyes, but a new excitement and a new connection and a new emotional intimacy. So I'd like us to take the second poll and ask, what stage is your relationship at? Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results so you can all see what I'm seeing. There, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, so we have 6% people in dream, 16% in drama, 65% in discovery, and 13% in depth. So I tend to focus mostly on the drama and discovery people. Not that the other people are not important, the dream and the depth, but really they're not experiencing the pain and are not in need of an intervention. Because as we get into part 2 of our talk, I want to focus more on healing that dynamic, especially when it gets very painful in relationship. Thank you, Irene, Stella, and people who are giving me some props in the chat box. So there's a couple of things I want to point out. One is that this pursue-avoidance dynamic is in our nervous systems. It's the person is not trying to be difficult and to avoid intimacy, and the person pursuing is not trying to be angry and difficult, but this way of being in relationship has been written into their nervous system at a very tender age when they were still a child. And that each one of us has developed a storyline, an internal working model, a way of understanding, a paradigm, a way of understanding who we are in relation to other people. And so when we start these romantic relationships, they overlay this internal working model. And it's not easy to change this internal working model. The other thing I want to tell you that is at play in these dynamics is our trauma. I'll use myself as an example. My mom and dad died both of them in very traumatic ways as a child. And that frightened my soul. The nervous system, internal working models, and trauma, those are the three things that I wanted to share with you. And because my mom and dad died in very traumatic ways, my nervous system registered that shock. So imagine the nervous system as a set of let's say an electrical system. What would happen in an electrical system if you put a huge amount of power suddenly? You can write in the chat box or unmute yourself. What would happen if there's a huge amount of power? Yes, there's shock. The fuse will blow and usually they'll cut out. Yeah, thank you for that, Shifa. Sparks, Judith, yes. Fear, Olga, blow appliances, that is what happens. Our nervous system tends to be programmed by a huge amount of electricity, a huge amount of emotion. So emotion usually travels in our body as electric signals. And when the amount of power increases, it sort of sets it to a program. And whenever you come upon a certain set of circumstances that reminds you of that old issue that happened, the nervous system will just replay itself as if that shock is happening again and again. So when you have trauma and untreated trauma, you find that you'll be reacting in particular repetitive ways within relationship. Yeah, there'll be short circuits, thank you. iPhone says explosion, Samsung says withdraw. Sorry for using those names, but I don't have a name here, but all those are things that are happening. I'm trying to give you a mental picture of what is happening on the inside of us when we are in relationships. There are relationships which feel safe. The power is at a normal, consistent level. And hey, we love to hang out with those people. And then there are people who trigger us. And you find that your nervous system is not handling such people very well. What can we do about this? How do we heal this dynamic, given that now we know it's in our nervous systems, it is an internal working model, and that trauma is a big part of this? How do we get healing? How do we get reunification of people who are now triggering each other? So along the way in marriage, when we do enough bad things to one another, we trigger those old responses that we have in our nervous system. And some of us don't have those responses, but there's enough hurt in the relationship that we develop those responses maybe as adults. How do we repair? How do we go on? Is this possible? And I'd like to say, yes, I've come with a message of hope. It is possible to heal. It is possible to repair. And we're going to go right back to that video, which where Dr. Sue Johnson was showing us how this pattern in childhood is the same as the pattern in adulthood. And we're just going to watch a couple of minutes and to show the reunification process or the repair process.
I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
Look. Okay, look, you're really upset, and it's not you, okay? It's not you. And you're right, when it comes to this topic, I shut right down. It's just your family is just so intimidating. And, you know, they're always asking questions about my career and how I'm doing and how we're doing. And it's a little much. I just block it out, okay? But it's not you. And you're really upset right now. And I don't want to see you upset. And I don't want you to think that I don't care about your feelings. So when this thing is done, we'll get out of here and we'll talk some more. Because you're right, we have to talk, okay? Okay, babe? All right.
Okay, so in both cases, we've seen the baby reconnecting with the mother and the couple reconnecting. And really, all of us are able to do that. But at some point, sometimes when the drama is too high, we lose our way and we lose our ability to go back and to reconnect. And sometimes the reconnection is, we keep missing each other. It's not really strong. How do we overcome? How do we overcome that? So just to show the last part of our presentation is going to focus on that. And I had a little video that I probably won't have the time to show on reconnecting with an attachment person. But let me show maybe the meat of this. So this therapy called EFT has particularly been built around this dynamic. It's based on attachment science and helps to improve emotional bonds. And it goes through 3 stages of therapy. The first one is de-escalation, where we identify each couple has a way that they disconnect. Some people, for example, for me, one of my disconnections is if it's 5 o'clock and I haven't heard from Moses, a negative cycle starts to happen for me. I start to think negatively. Is he going to come home? Is he, are we going to spend the evening together? Did he even think about me? So everybody has that negative, every couple has that negative cycle. And the other person also has their thing. And identifying when do things start to go wrong. So we help the couple identify when things start to go wrong for them. For some, it may be mother-in-law or father-in-law issues, or some it's going to be finances, but those triggers, identifying them, who responds to who in what way. Then in stage 2, we go into restructuring. We help the couple identify the emotions that are underlying the surface emotions. The surface emotions are usually there's anger, there's frustration, we're in our strong emotions, but the vulnerability is often very well hidden by us. We don't show that I'm ashamed. I don't show that I'm lonely, that when it gets to 5 p.m., I wonder, am I going to be lonely in the evening? So we help couples to distill to that basic root raw emotion and to express it to their partner. And for many people, when you express the real raw vulnerable emotion, your partner is willing to meet you. Sometimes the partner isn't. We train the partners to meet each other. And then lastly, once we've got the couple to learn to do this dance a more clear signal of meeting each other's emotional needs, then we move into consolidation, where we get the couple to resolve old problems by themselves using this a more positive dance. Now, I know a lot of you will say, well, I don't know an EFT therapist. I can't afford an EFT therapist. There's another program that has been developed out of EFT. It's called Hold Me Tight. And in the church circles, we call it Created for Connection. In this program, we take the couples through 7 conversations of love. In these conversations, you get a workbook and you ask some of those, really telling questions that tell the story of your attachment. Who comforted you when you were young? When you cried, who frightened you? And as you write down those answers and have these conversations with your spouse, you start to reconnect emotionally. And these 7 conversations help the couple to build a stronger emotional bond. I bring about EMDR therapy, because remember how I talked about how a large volume of power going through the wires usually just causes things to short circuit. There are people who are not going to be easily comforted because their trauma has just deranged the nervous system. For some, they're hypersensitive and react wildly and to issues, and some are hyposensitive. They don't respond well to normal situations. They just show very little emotional reaction and response. So EMDR seems to get people to come back to a more flexible tolerance of emotions. And it's called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. We use the movement of the eyes left to right or bilateral stimulation to help clients assess their history, walk through distressing emotions, and come back to a new understanding, a feeling of safety in their own bodies. Now, lastly, I'd like to give some parting words to the pursuer. For the pursuer, there's a lot of energy in your nervous system, a lot of energy that is usually focused on chasing the other person. But I'm saying instead, turn this pursuit inward. I'm not saying stop being dependent, but I'm saying start to work on your healing. Put some of that energy on inner healing. Sorry. Take a sip. Pause the chase and ask yourself, what am I really afraid of right now? Am I afraid that they're going to leave me for somebody else? Am I afraid that I am not loved, that I am not important? What is it you're afraid of? Can you find a way to regulate yourself? Can you find a way to soothe that anxiety in the now? But also, can you practice to give vulnerable expressions instead of, why didn't you come home at 5? And why don't you ever do this? And why don't you ever pick my calls? And why don't you ever respond? Can you say, I miss you? I need you. I want to know if I'm important to you. I've had some of the most magnificent connections with my husband when I've been able to connect with that fear and say, am I important to you? And to receive that reassurance. Oh, yes, he's even surprised, like, what? Of course you're important to me. There's a day I asked him, do you miss me? And he said, every day that you are not here. There's a really beautiful connections that you can have once you learn to turn that energy around. It's not easy because, like I said, the nervous system will do what the nervous system does. But once you get in touch with that emotion and then just rework it to give a vulnerable expression, you get some magic happening. Once you do this, it empowers you to reduce the emotional pressure that you place on your partner and make space for true connection instead of a reactive engagement. That invites closeness without demanding it. To the avoidant, this is what I say. Avoidants must learn to recognize their flight response. Recognize that you're shutting down. Recognize when you go silent. Recognize when you get irritated. Recognize when you have that tendency to protect and withdraw and to disconnect. As much as the pursuer needs to work on themselves, the avoidant needs to stay connected when everything in their nervous system is telling them, run. Identify the fears underneath your distancing. Are you afraid that if I depend on you, that you lose yourself, that you'll be judged? What are you afraid of? Connect with your fear. Will you be engulfed and taken over by this person? Practice in vulnerability as well, even in small ways. For example, you can say, hey, I really do not know how to talk about this, but I want to try. Say, I don't know how I feel, but I would like to give you an answer. Give the story of your nervous system. Be true to share what's happening on the inside. Avoidance must lean in instead of leaning out, leaning away from. Lean in. Risk emotional exposure and tolerate the discomfort of true intimacy. Pursuers, let me tell you what, emotional expression cannot be forced. It can be welcomed, but it cannot be forced. When an avoidant is even a little bit expressive and vulnerable, accept whatever they give without urgency or correction. Accept. It will be baby steps. It will feel unsatisfactory to you, but accept. Accept what you've got and know that this is a journey of 1,000 miles. It takes many, many iterations, many attempts. Respect their autonomy. If they need to, my husband has this thing when he gets busy during exam time. And I just learned to say, hey, I know you're busy during exam time. You're not going to be on the phone too much, but can you let me know? Can you give me a signal that you care about me, even when you're so busy and not on the phone? So I'm respecting his autonomy. At the same time, I'm getting connection. In practice, the pursuer is usually going to be the one doing a lot of this work. And it's that you're going to remain emotionally available without overly chasing. You're going to be calm and patient when they open up, and to celebrate the small steps without overanalyzing. Now, I know that some people want to begin today, that this is enough for you to say, hey, this is what I've been waiting for. I'm ready to take the plunge. I need to do the work. I have taken all my master's work and put the critical lessons that I learned in a book. It's called Demystifying the Drama of Marriage, and it's available on Amazon. I tried to work out a discount for you guys, but it takes 72 hours to kick in. So 72 hours from now is, this is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So between Sunday to Monday, this book is 50% off on Amazon. So it's not an expensive book, by the way. It's only $12. So those of you who want to grab it for yourself and begin the work of forgiving each other in marriage, begin the work of learning to soothe yourself, this is a book that can help you. Lastly, I have created a Dreamcatcher diary. This is a planner that also helps you to plan out, to live life with intention, to say this week, what am I going to do about this area of my life? What am I going to do about marriage, for example? And every week you have something. So every year you have something. So in the first pages, you're doing an annual plan, and then you set out a quarterly plan. And on a weekly basis, you're setting goals and assessing whether you have achieved them or not. And this is what I'm able to do to support you. Also, I'd like to say that our team is willing to do church-based interventions as far as Hold Me Tight, to come and implement a Hold Me Tight. So your church can reach out to us. Hopefully, we've done something in Uganda. Hopefully, we'll do something in Zimbabwe this year, and possibly Malawi and Ethiopia next year. Otherwise, I want you to all remember that on the inside of this conflict are two young children just trying to reach one another. Those are my contacts, and thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience.